My Aunt True and Uncle False live in a trailer park called Big Fib Trailer Park Cul-de-sac. It's a trailer park that's in the shape of a giant cul-de-sac in a town called Big Fib, which is way down south of here. It's down there off the coast of Factual. In fact, if you leave Factual and you head due south, you will pass Big Fib on your way to Bald-Faced. And obviously, if you get to Bald-Faced, then you have gone too far. Now, I went down there recently to ask Aunt True and Uncle False to tell me a few of my favorite of their stories, because they ain't getting any younger after all. And this one is the story of how Aunt True and Uncle False met. Uncle False starts the story. He says, "Once upon a time," and then Aunt True interrupted him. She said, "Honey, don't start the story about the way we met, the way people start stories about wizards and castles. We ain't that old." And Uncle False said, "Well, how you want me to start the story then, True?" Aunt True said, "Well, honey, start the story the way you've started every story for 65 plus years. You say, 'Listen here,' even though I was already listening and had nowhere else I could go." And so, here is the story. Listen here, once upon a time. When Uncle False was 7 years old, his father had a 1949 forest green Plymouth Suburban station wagon, and Uncle False says, "I thought that car ran half on cuss words because it wouldn't start unless Daddy said a bunch of them." Come to think of it, I bet that's why we always walked to church. I told Uncle False that a car that ran half on cuss words, half on gasoline would have been the world's first hybrid. Now, the summer that Uncle False was 7 years old was also the same summer that Aunt True and her family moved to the trailer park. At that time, Aunt True was very interested in math, so she was 5 7/8 years old. Uncle False says, "Listen here, first time she told me she's 5 7/8 years old, I thought, Lord, wherever they're from, they must measure years in socket wrenches." Well, the summer that Uncle False was 7 and Aunt True was 5 7/8 was also the summer that Uncle False's daddy found religion and bridled his evil tongue, and so that forest green Plymouth Suburban station wagon never moved. Uncle False's daddy pushed the car up onto these 2 metal ramps, the back wheels up onto these 2 metal ramps to ostensibly work on the car, but every time he went to work on the car, he'd have evil thoughts and have to ask for forgiveness at church the next Sunday. And so that car just stayed there, y'all, and we all know what an all-steel stationary station wagon is to a 7-year-old. It's a castle. Uncle False said, "Listen here, I called it Castle Cuss-a-Lot." Now, the first words that my Aunt True ever said to my Uncle False were, "What are you doing?" Aunt True always stops the story right here to say, "Honey, some things ain't changed in 70 years. Aunt True said, "What are you doing?" And Uncle False, 7-year-old Uncle False, was standing on top of Castle Cuss-a-Lot with a hubcap in one hand and a broken radio antenna in the other, and he said, "I am surveying my kingdom from this turret. How old are ye, new peasant?" And Aunt True said 5 7/8, and Uncle False said, "And 7/8, and Aunt True said, "Yeah, it's a fraction," and Uncle False said, "This kingdom does not deal in math sorcery." And then Aunt True walked home. Uncle False's favorite fraction has always been ish. Well, this went on like this for several days. Aunt True trying to make a connection, Uncle False always acting a fool, until finally Aunt True was 5 365 years old. And she come over and knocked on the window of Castle Cuss-a-Lot. Uncle False rolled the window down and Aunt True said, "Hey, tomorrow there's a birthday party at my trailer. Mama is making me invite you. I will be 6, so you should come over. It'll be safe for you. There will be no fractions." Then she just turned around and walked away. Uncle False kind of sat there, and then he did that thing that we all do, you know, at some point in our lives. We're in the middle of a heated moment. You end up saying something that doesn't have anything to do with the argument at hand. But what it does, that thing that comes out of your mouth, it actually betrays more about how you really feel. Uncle False got all flustered. She was walking away. He said, "Don't you want to be a princess?" Aunt True spun around and she said, "No, I don't want to be a princess." but I do want to get in that car. And Uncle Falt said, well, it ain't a car, it's a castle. And Aunt True said, castle windows don't roll down. And Uncle Falt said, you should learn to play along. Which is a thing you used to be able to do. You used to be able to dramatically roll up a window. Can't do that anymore. You should learn to play along. Uncle Falt said, you should learn to play along. And then Aunt True took off running right in front of Castle Cusslet. Now, Uncle Falt's thought she was playing along, thought she was going to get into the passenger side door, so he started butt scooting as fast as he could across that giant bench seat. You know, those cars back in then were 1.5 miles across, so he was just butt scooting as fast as he could to get over to that passenger side door to unlock it for her. Just as he got to the passenger side door, she kept running. Ran all the way around the back of the car, right back where she started, threw open the driver's side door, sat down behind the wheel, slammed the driver's side door, looked at Uncle Falt and victoriously smiled. Aunt True always says, honey, why would I pretend to be a princess when not playing along's how you get the real power? Uncle Falt said, listen here, she tricked me so bad, it made me so mad, I said every cuss word in Daddy's vocabulary, and that's when the car started. That car starting scared Aunt True so bad, she slipped right off the front of that bench seat. Her right foot smacked into the accelerator pedal. The car was in neutral, so it just revved really loud, rolled off those 2 metal ramps into the center of the cul-de-sac-shaped trailer park. It was going 2.5 miles an hour. Everything would have been fine. A bunch of adults saw what happened, jumped up, ran out of their trailers to help. Everything would have been fine, y'all, if Uncle False's daddy, mid-car chase, hadn't relapsed and lost his religion. He cussed Uncle Falt so bad that car shifted into gear, spun its wheels, and took off out the trailer park. Luckily, Aunt True had regained her composure and her balance and was able to safely steer the car out of the cul-de-sac-shaped trailer park. The whole time, she says, she was screaming to herself, don't let go! Don't let go! Don't let go! They got about 100 yards down that dirt road before the car got out of earshot of Uncle False's daddy's oaths, at which point the car just rolled to the side of the road and died. And there Aunt True and Uncle Falt sat, having been through the craziest ride. And that's who they still are today, y'all. Just 2 people sitting there, having been through the craziest ride. On the way out, the only damage that had been done to the car, the right passenger side mirror had smacked into Aunt True's family's brand new mailbox, knocked the mailbox right off the post, bent that passenger side mirror in. And so, there Aunt True and Uncle Falt sat, and they could see each other in that bent-in passenger side mirror. And Uncle Falt's always ends the story like this. He says, listen here, boy. Me and Aunt True could see each other in that bent-in passenger side mirror. And back in them times, those mirrors didn't always say, objects in mirror are closer than they appear. But we were.